No matter how you try to deny it, that little bit of uneasiness when the lights go out, it's just there. The second the room goes black, your body just shifts into this high alert mode. Suddenly, every single one of your senses is on overdrive, trying to grasp onto the smallest sound or shadow in that emptiness around you.
And you know why that is? Because we as humans are just wired that way. We evolved to feel it. It's just part of being us. So let's trace it back to where it all began. Not when you were born or your grandpa joined the army. Let's go back to 2 million years ago. We're talking about Homo erectus, one of our earliest human ancestors. So obviously, they created nothing and have nothing at that time. They were just wandering the vast, sun-drenched, and often empty plains of Africa. Every single day was a struggle, living under the constant threat of hunger, dodging predators, and trying to survive the biting cold. It's honestly a horrible living condition, but it got so much worse. When the sun was out, the true terror was unleashed. No, it wasn't the scary darkness, because the true terror wasn't just the darkness itself, it was what came with it, lurking in the shadow. Predators like saber-toothed cats, the early Smilodon, wielded deadly canines up to 18 centimeters long. Yet, its bite force was surprisingly weak, only about a third as powerful as a modern lion's. Its true strength came from a robust jaguar-sized body, weighing from 55 to 100 kilograms, and the immense neck muscles used to drive its sabers into prey with lethal force after a powerful ambush.
And giant, bone-crushing short-faced hyena, Pachycrocuta brevirostris, began their nightly patrol. These animals were built for the dark, with eyes that could pierce right through the gloom and bodies perfectly designed for a silent hunt.
And unfortunately for our early ancestors, their ape fists wouldn't cut it. And even if they had a decent stone spear, it was still not possible to win. The predators lurked in the dark, almost invisible under the moonlight. For short, they can't fight what they can't see. And obviously, they can't run in pitch black night also. But here's the amazing thing. Against all those odds, you and I are here. That means that somehow our early ancestors found a way to survive those killer nights. We don't have long saber teeth or claws, so it must have been something else, something that changed the game completely. A piece of the sun fallen to earth, strangely warm and welcoming, yet its touch was pure destruction. Fire it was. It arrived unexpectedly, with the roar of thunder, lightning strikes on dry grasslands, or from distant erupting volcanoes that turned the sky red and shook the earth. Their first reaction, naturally, was probably fear.
They would have retreated, just like any other animal. But then, something that set them apart started to take over. It's curiosity. A few of them likely edged closer, feeling the pleasant warmth coming off the embers.
This is probably when they made that key discovery that the unfortunate animals caught in the fire. Their cooked meat left behind was much softer and easier to eat. It was in these initial encounters, while still unable to grasp the power of fire, they began to think. They started to realize that this powerful force didn't just destroy, it could also provide.
It could warm them, reveal the lurking predator, and chase them away. And so, from that point on, the connection was forged deep within our psyche. Light became our comfort, our sanctuary. The darkness, that remained the place of immense danger. But it's still approximately 1,500,000 years before the first Zippo was invented. They can't make fire just yet, so they can only keep it alive. And this job forced our primitive mind to put in the work. After a natural fire, they learned to carefully transport the embers from one place to another, carrying it with them in things like half-burnt branches or pieces of dry bark. Protecting a slow-burning coal became a critical task. It had to be shielded from the wind, maybe covered with a bit of earth or damp moss to keep it from burning out too quickly. In places like Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, archaeologists have found ash and burned bone deep inside, dating back about 1 million years. This is a clear sign that they weren't just finding fire by accident anymore. They were actively bringing it into their dwellings and living with it. Though their thought process at first was fire equals warm and safe, but somehow their instinctive action led to something far greater, so much more important than fire itself. Earlier, we spoke of our early ancestor accessing cooked food with the help of fire,
But cooked food is much, much more important than just the way to fill their stomach. And they didn't even know it yet. Fire sparked a revolution in how Homo erectus approached food. Before, they had to struggle with tough, chewy, and hard-to-digest raw meat. Chewing these tough, raw portions not only took a lot of time, but also forced them to expend a great deal of energy on digestion.
But once they learned to use fire, they began to cook their food. Cooked meat and plants became softer, easier to chew, easier to digest, and most importantly, provided more energy to the body.
Eating cooked food helped reduce the risk of diseases from bacteria and parasites, contributing to better health and longer lifespans. The flame, silent and persistent, didn't just cook food, it ripened the very course of human evolution. And the changes just kept rippling outwards. The abundant energy they got from cooked food, for example, did way more than just make them healthier. It directly fed their brains. There's this amazing idea from an anthropologist, Richard Wrangham, called the big brain, small gut theory. The thinking is that once humans started eating cooked food, our bodies didn't have to spend nearly as much energy on the tough job of digestion. That freed up energy could be redirected somewhere else, and in our case, it went straight to developing bigger, more complex brains. By that logic, if a time traveler shifted a rock and caused the saber-toothed tiger to eat entirely cooked meat, the world we know today might look a bit different.
You can actually see it in the fossils. The brain size of Homo erectus shot up dramatically compared to their ancestors, from around 600 cc to 900 cc, or even more. At the same time, over thousands of generations, their jaws and teeth got smaller. It makes sense, right? They just didn't need that powerful chewing strength anymore to break down tough, raw food. This wasn't just a simple physical tweak. It was a complete rewiring of their biology and behavior. Before fire, they were almost entirely at the mercy of their environment, reacting to the weather, fleeing from predators, just trying to cope with what nature threw at them. But fire gave them a tool to push back. For the very first time, they weren't just living in the world, they were starting to shape it to their own needs. And think about it, fire literally extended the day. The night, which had always been this time of absolute fear, was now lit up by flickering flames. And around that circle of light, something profound started to happen. They didn't just sit there to stay warm, they sat there to connect. Right there, in that small circle of warmth and light, the idea of community started to truly form. They were no longer just a collection of individuals scrambling for their next meal. They were becoming a community with a shared space, a shared memory, and a shared future. Disjointed sounds and gestures they used could slowly become common symbols, the very first seeds of language, nurtured in the safety of the firelight. Memory was no longer just trapped inside one person's head. It became a collective thing, passed down through stories told by the fire. This was probably the very beginning of oral culture, of social rules, and of what it means to belong to a group. And fire also gave them the courage to expand their world. Thanks to the flame, they could finally set foot in colder lands that would have been a death sentence before. The fire was their shield against predators and their shelter on freezing nights. Slowly but surely, Homo erectus started to spread out from Africa and into the colder parts of Asia and Europe. They weren't just surviving the climate anymore, they were conquering it. Then over time, it's easy to imagine that fire became something more than a tool. It probably became sacred. The campfire wasn't just the physical center of the group, it may have become the spiritual one too, where the first simple rituals were born. From the simple act of keeping a flame alive, they learned to create better tools, to bond with one another, to dream and to remember. Those first sparks didn't just light up the darkness of the night, they illuminated the journey of a species that was finally